All right, welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today we have even more bad news for fans of The Walking Dead. This time it affects collectors, namely action figure collectors from the McFarlane Toys line. The most recent wave coming out was a 7-inch Maggie. I'll have to admit, probably one of the coolest recent figures. Potentially, it all depends on the articulation and everything, but I love this outfit and design. It is from the season finale of season 7, I believe. This is also one of the figures in the wave. It's another season 7 figure. This is a variant of Negan, clean shaven and jacket open, as opposed to the previous figure, which had the beard, the scarf, and the jacket zipped up, which was the season 6 finale and the season 7 premiere version of Negan. And then this one. This is, again, a season 7 version of Rick Grimes. Definitely cool detail-wise, but I don't think anyone was looking forward to having a Rick in this position. They got in this, statue pose. We've had Shane and Daryl in these kind of awkward poses, and no one really wants them. I'm a massive Rick fan. I'd probably grab it, but these are usually the worst to get. They just don't display well. They're awkward, and you're forced to have them looking just like that. And that might have led to what happened. This is a post that was put up on the Walking Dead action figure and memorabilia page. It's a Facebook page that used to be flooded with discussions about collecting in general, excitement about new waves, and it's still a cool group of people. Unfortunately, with some of the choices that McFarlane made, namely canceling the 5-inch line for the most part and going into the 7-inch line, things took a really hard hit there, and it just gets worse when they started dwindling down on the releases without anything coming out. There's not a lot for fans. Not a lot of new things for fans to get excited for, especially when it comes to a group that's centered around the figures. Now, this comes from McFarlane Toys customer service. It says, "Hello, thank you for contacting McFarlane Toys customer service regarding the Walking Dead figures. As of now, they have been postponed, but it is possible we may produce them in the future. Thank you, McFarlane Toys customer service." And then it goes on to say other stuff that's not really important to this. So that would mean that the new Rick 7-inch, the new Negan 7-inch, and the new Maggie 7-inch, which a lot of fans saw the signs of this coming since they showed this computer-generated image for these two. They had this guy on display, but ever since then, we haven't seen any updates. And they usually will give an update where they're painting the figure, the prototype, or you see the mold in a bucket and you can tell by the different pieces there. But we haven't really gotten anything. If we've got it, I missed it. But a lot of fans were taking that as this line might be pushed back because it was supposed to come out this month. So I'm assuming there's a lot of fans that don't know about this that are looking for these figures. Or maybe that's not true. Maybe that's why they're postponing it. Now, McFarlane Toys has gone on to say that they had a lot of success with some of the building sets and other stuff, usually geared towards the younger or teenage age or right around there. I'm not really familiar with it. I know what they are, but I know what Rick and Morty is, but I'm not familiar with the Rick and Morty toys. They do look like they're geared towards a younger audience, but they have those building sets, all different types. They have the 5 Days at Freddy's, or Freddy. I know about that video game. I never played it personally. My daughter played it just a tiny bit, but and other stuff like that. So they look like they're shifting away from The Walking Dead to a certain degree, and they're primarily focusing on these things. And Fortnite figures was just announced. I'd be shocked if they weren't going to go through with that because that is the most recent announcement they made. So they should be pushing through with that unless there's something else I don't know about. That would be really weird. They announce it and then, and then it's hurting later on down the line. But I think if you want to take something positive out of this, so it's not all doom and gloom, maybe the Fortnite figures is a blessing because they're going to be premium figures and highly articulated. That could spill over if you're a fan of the Walking Dead line. It could spill over into the 7-inch line where they make them detailed because McFarlane Toys is good with details and is good with weathering. They do some of the best in the business. Where they fail majorly is, I believe, there's a disconnect with them and their actual consumers. Their consumers have been screaming for the longest until they're blue in the face, and most of them just stop collecting because they're not being listened to. They want to buy ones with articulation. You know, they don't want the statues. I even made a video talking about the color tops would probably last maybe a year and a half. And I didn't want to make that video. There were some people that were like, man, that's a little rough, Ronnie. But that is true. That's what happened. You notice there's no, in these announcements, there's no color tops because it just did not go through. It did not work. First off, you're combining the huge Walking Dead franchise with a bunch of other random franchises, which makes sense when they did Movie Maniacs back in the day, because that's cool. Everyone loves all the horror characters pretty much, even if you don't really like, you know, the movies all that well. If you don't love every single Friday the 13th, it doesn't matter. You still love the concept of it. You're probably loving some of the movies, but you'll love a Jason figure. Same thing with Freddy. So it makes sense to put Freddy and Edward Scissorhands and the It creature and the creature from The Thing. That was a great idea. That could work. Absolutely. But don't take The Walking Dead and put them in this collector box where you have to also collect other random stuff that has nothing to do with The Walking Dead. Video games, cartoons or anime, and all this other, a whole wide range of things they couldn't sell. And a lot of fans said it feels like you have this one franchise, which is The Walking Dead, that has potential for a lot of different characters, and that's true because they released a lot so far, a lot in the 5-inch line and then a few in the 7-inch line. But you have the potential for a lot of characters, and then you're bringing on these other franchises where you might make only 2 or 3 characters out of that franchise at a time. Some franchises you're only getting 1 character or 2 characters. For example, they did a movie, I forget, it's an older movie, I can't think of it, but it was only the 1 character that they did from that movie, I believe. Now, you can't stock the pegs with just 1 character. That's why McFarlane thought it would be a great idea to combine them all. And in theory, it would have worked if it was something more like the movie Maniacs. If it was like plastic icons, for example. I don't know if that's already used or not, but just for an example, plastic icons. And then you had this line where you had all those characters from the video games and the cartoons. I think the biggest failure was, or the biggest problem was, combining The Walking Dead with and all that. They had something going with The Walking Dead. If they wanted to move to a 7-inch line, they should have taken the 5-inch and just bumped it up. Same detail, better detail with the 7-inch line because the detail is still awesome. And then just add the articulation to that. And I don't think they would have had such a problem with the figure selling. I see a lot of fans talking about decisions they make that they don't understand why they're making them. Now, McFarlane could see the numbers and they'll notice that, for example, the walkers don't sell as much, the zombies, which that blows my mind because I'm a monster guy. I love the gory stuff. I'll buy every zombie you put out. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it. Get it done. But they did zombies and they didn't sell well. And I think the biggest reason for that isn't because they're zombies. It's simply because every time they did a zombie, they didn't have faith in what they were creating, so they would create gimmicks. Like these zombies had, this guts that fell out or jaw that came off. For an example, fans want a screen-accurate RV walker. That's it. Just do the normal figure human articulation and give us the RV walker with a screwdriver that goes in and out of the head. Simple. But instead, McFarlane did one where there was no articulation. It was stuck in this weird grabbing pose, so you couldn't do anything with it. I mean, you could, but it made the figure look like crap when you moved it. And then they decided to slit its throat, which isn't screen accurate. So now it has this head that lifts up and down. But it was still good enough for them to release that figure twice. Fans still bought it enough for them to re-release it. And the thing is, I think it would have sold more if they didn't slit its throat, if they didn't limit the articulation. But those were the older ones. Now they started coming out with figures with more articulation. But when they released the zombie, it was stiff. There was no articulation points, or not many. One of the best zombies is the pincushion one. You can actually stick all the swords into the zombie. It was friggin' cool. My daughter loved it, actually. She asked me to get her one for Christmas, and she still has it. But it just lays around, though, because it was a neat idea, but it's so stiff and it lacks the articulation. And that's a big thing, because a lot of these fans, and I mean a lot, that collect The Walking Dead, a lot of them, whether they're young or old, they're collectors. They want it like a 3D poster, you know? Posters are the way of the old. That's how you celebrate what you loved back in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. Nowadays, a lot more people are buying just a figure of something they love and setting it up as a poster on their bookshelf, on their DVD rack, on their office. Hell, I got a Predator monster standing right in front of my computer because he looks awesome, and it's right on my office. I know my mother, she doesn't care about toys whatsoever, but she loves the Flash. She has a toy of the Flash on her office, or I don't know where she has it. I know it was in her car, and she said it was for her office. I know because I bought it for her. There's a lot of people I know where they got little trinkets. I know a ton of people who have no interest in toys, and they buy every single Walking Dead figure out there because this is something they love, the show, and it's so neat. Anyone could buy just a simple poster and slap it on the wall, but it's so neat throwing these things on the shelf. They look cool, they pop out, and the best part is you can customize how you set it up. I think that's the biggest disconnect with McFarlane Toys, if I can speak from somebody who wants them to succeed and offer an advice from someone who's buying your product, if you're open to listening. It's not just me, I'm hearing from the majority of the fan base, which is becoming a problem because, like I said, I was in a collector group, I still am, and it's sad to see, and the group is a good group, but it's still sad to see that a few years ago when the figures were hot, and even the show was hotter, it was usually all discussions with a few listings of people trading and buying. Nowadays, it's flooded with sales. People are dropping, they're selling entire collections. And if McFarlane Toys is wondering why sales are dropping, it's a number of reasons, dealing with the color tops, for one, never should have happened as far as combining them. You're telling collectors with numbered boxes, they loved it, but the second they heard they had to collect other stuff, it just ruined that experience of even having that. Well, what's the point of that? I'm not going to buy 50 other franchises that I'm not interested in just to have a complete collection of the color tops. It's that added with dropping the 5-inch line altogether. You could have did a dual line. I think that would have worked well, but you needed articulation in the 7-inch line. You could have done a dual line, possibly, and snuck it in there where you transitioned over to the big line eventually. And I say they should have did the older characters like a 5-inch Lori, and it would be exclusive for the 5-inch or whatever you did. Fill out the earlier seasoned characters and then transition gracefully over into the 7-inch figures. I think McFarlane Toys, a big thing they did is they abruptly put it to an end, and fans really took that like a little sign of disrespect. Like, we're willing to buy stuff from you, but all of a sudden you're going to say, no, I'm not making that for you. I'm going to make this for you instead, and you're going to like this more. It just had from a PR perspective, it just had a bad spin and a bad taste in their mouths. But these collectors that are buying the product, they want that. They want that customizable to put it on a shelf. They want it to look good. They want it to put it on there in their own way. You know what I mean? Now, I think I had a really good point, and I think this video is getting a little long, so I might just end it here. But I do want to say the comic figures appear to be selling still just fine. They're going to release some repaints and stuff like that down the line, but they're also sprinkling in some new characters. I'm still disappointed, really disappointed, we're not getting a Maggie. We haven't had a comic Maggie ever in figure form, but eventually maybe we're going to get her down the line. But here's the princess, so they still have comic figures coming. I'm hoping they're going to continue strong, but it doesn't look good for the TV line. If there's still hope in bringing out the TV line, I think they should use whatever they're doing with the highly articulated figures with Fortnite, transfer that over with The Walking Dead. I know McFarlane is stuck on having the figures look like statues, and he has a good point. I agree with him when it comes to the detail. You want it to look awesome and yada yada yada, but there is a way to make it where it still looks like a toy, and it has all that great detail. What I mean by a toy is the articulation points. Fans are not flipping out about articulation points. That's part of what comes with the territory, you know? And if it's not easy to cut, if it's not easy to hide the articulation on somebody in a wife beater or a tank top, they shouldn't worry about not putting the articulation there. Like when it comes to Michonne, she's stuck in that one stance, and it does look beautiful. It looks smooth. I love how it looks. I give you credit. It looks proper. There's no cuts in it whatsoever. It looks just like Michonne from the friggin' show. But the problem is a lot of fans don't want the statue. It's just kind of boring. She's just stuck in that one pose. And it's neat, but it doesn't last too long. Anyway, put your thoughts and opinions down below. What do you guys think about this news? If you're into collecting, I didn't want to bring more negativity into it, but here you have it. Sorry the line's been postponed, and hopefully they got some good stuff coming up. And if I remember what my train of thought was previously, I'm going to pin that into the comments section down below, because I think I was on to something, but sometimes I feel like one problem that companies like McFarlane Toys and Telltale Games even, one reason Telltale Games went under completely is because they didn't listen to a lot of the criticism. If you go back and look now, my God, there's a wealth of information that fans were talking about years ago, and they didn't listen to a single one of that, which is insane, and it's a shame. They wrote it off, I assume, as simply haters, and they just leaned into the side that was loving everything they did, that said only positive things. Not all negative things that are said are going to hurt you. Some are actually helpful. I think we as people, especially with the internet the way it is and how connected we are becoming, we got to stop being so sensitive. Anytime you hear something from somebody that's negative, it doesn't make them a hater. Like, I don't hate Todd McFarlane. I don't hate McFarlane Toys. I don't hate Skybound. I don't hate Kirkman. I don't hate any company that once in a while, if I think something is negative, I'm going to speak on it. If I get to the point where I hate someone, I'll let you guys know. But you shouldn't write it off as just like, Ronnie's hating. No, if I didn't want you to succeed, trust me, I wouldn't waste my time talking about what I feel like you could be doing better. And I don't come at this, or I try not to come at this as, I know how to run your company better than you do, or a know-it-all. No, I'm a part of the group of people that purchase the stuff you're trying to sell. So based off of that, I think I know what I read and what I know personally that we would buy. I can simply tell you, I wouldn't buy this because this and this, Like this Rick here, perfect example. I wouldn't buy this Rick unless I was a massive Rick fan, and I'm a massive Rick fan. And if I went and the print technology looked like their Stranger Things figures, I wouldn't buy this. It needs to look like Rick and be painted well, and I'd pick this up. And the main reason is because this stance is awful. One, I already know from experience, it's not going to stand up on the shelf. It's going to constantly fall over. He's stuck in this pose, which I don't like at all. At all. So it does, I'm going to shut it down because it is getting negative. But what I'm saying is, I think McFarlane Toys, when they heard about, how I was talking about Telltale hearing negative things and just writing it off, when McFarlane Toys heard the fans' outrage with the color tops and the plans to cut off the 5-inch line and go to 7-inch line. He was open. He himself was open at the Comic-Con convention literally saying, and I don't hold this against him. I get where he's coming from. He's saying he hears the feedback, the negative feedback, and he doesn't care. He's going to make what he wants to make. And I think therein lies one of the biggest problems. What you want to make isn't what we want to buy. So I think that's where the failure comes in. Take what you want to make. Just give it the little spices that the fans want. Take your detailed figure. You're going to have to compromise and add that articulation. You know, fans don't want statues. They want the damn figures they can put up in any way they want to set up. Anyhow, thoughts and opinions down in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.